I mean, I am instantly, my eyes, his hands are like magnetic. Whenever he's talking, I'm like, look at his hands. So if you're an actor, consider this. Hey, this is The Sword and the Pen Reflections. It is my casual alternative to the more formal channel, The Sword and the Pen, link up there. I'm reviewing right now Shadow and Bone, Season 2, Episode 4, and comparing it as best I can to its book, Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the trilogy, which I just finished. So, hooray, I'm all caught up, I thought, because this is only Episode 4, which means there's 4 more. So I'm thinking I'm supposed to read the whole next book, Ruin and Rising? Is that it? Okay, anyway, so I feel at least somewhat qualified to make the book and show comparison at this point, so let's just do our best and plod along. Here we go. First off,
ain't nobody got time for that.
First off, in the book, Vasili is kind of, he's just like a spoiled rich child, a spoiled prince, you know, he's into gambling and horse racing, and I don't recall if there were brothels involved in the book. That's what he was portrayed as being. This is his primary interest, and he gets a bit jealous of Nikolai when Nikolai comes in and he's clearly a better leader than him, and Vasili's like, I want to be the guy, you know, that everybody goes to, and he's trying to take over these meetings. You know, they're having these military planning meetings, and Vasili will suddenly inject himself into the conversation, and everybody just kind of sits around and goes, oh my gosh. I think at one point even Alina goes, I've never heard somebody say so little with so many words, or something to that effect. And anyway, that's how he is in the book. In the show, however, he is just a little snooty, hoity-toity, pompous a-hole. So he's clearly malicious in the show, whereas in the book it was just incompetence and trying to be a poser. There was a scene where Alina, you know, the queen is like, oh, I'll send one of my seamstresses, you know, to make a dress for you. You'd have to dig deep to make this an insult to Alina, saying like, oh, you and your rags, I'm going to have, you know, a nice dress made for you. It's actually kind of a nice gesture, saying like, look, people would look down on you and all of us if you show up, you know, not looking like a queen. I'm going to have one of my seamstresses make something really beautiful for you. And you see Alina kind of give her the, you know, F you kind of smile and then go back to drinking her wine. I was like, Lena, you're being not very polite here. Which in the book, they always talk about how she learned her manners from Anakuya at Kremzen. So I was kind of going like, oh, that is not ladylike behavior, but whatever. Okay, in the book, they portrayed the queen as being a horrible person, so maybe they were kind of feeding off of that. It didn't really come across in the show as much. They did not make the queen as unlikable as in the show. So when we got to this scene, I was looking at Alina, especially later when we saw her with the seamstress and her going, I still can't move my arms. And the seamstress like trying to be like, oh, do you like it? You know, oh, okay, well, I'll go get you another corset. Like clearly trying to please her, and Alina just going like, you're not good enough and I hate this. This is horribly rude. I am not liking Alina. Alina, we gotta sharpen up your manners a little bit because you are not doing a good job of selling yourself as somebody that I want to root for. In the book, she's a bit better, but this was bad. This was not, I mean, okay, this is not the end of the world. This is not the end of this character. I just thought she was rude. So I made this prediction that there was going to be a love triangle. I'm really glad actually that it didn't happen between Alina and Nikolai and Mal, and that it's something more complicated than that. This is a far more interesting relationship that they have in the show. also don't want her to go for Nikolai. Why? Because Nikolai, despite being all for the country, he's like the polar opposite of Mal, which is actually a really good writing trick to make your two love interests, if it's going to be a love triangle, which I can't stand love triangles, but let me just explain something to you. When you have two people who your main character is supposed to be interested in, they can't pick between the two, you make them polar opposites of each other. Because you'll see the good qualities in each and go, how could I live with this one without all of the stuff that this one has to offer, and vice versa. Whereas if they were both kind of similar, then it wouldn't be too hard. You'd say, well, this one has all the same stuff that this guy has to offer, but he's also got this other thing, so I'm going with that. So make them as disparate from each other, make them as clearly contrasting as possible, and then there's a real dilemma. Because more people in real life are more well-rounded. But, this is how it works in fiction. You create two polar opposites and they have to pick between the two. And yeah, in the book, Nikolai is more about saving everybody. However, he does have this, I am a prince and I'm used to getting exactly what I want and I don't mind about walking over all these other people. And there's a point when Alina asks him something. I can't remember specifically what it is. If you can remember what it is, put it in the comments. But she says, I wasn't sure if you would you kill me to do something or betray me to save the people, or I forget. It's something like that. Oh gosh, I'm probably way off, but he says something like that. And then he pauses and she realizes he had to think about it. And he openly says to her, gosh, I'm really surprised at myself, but I really do have to think about that. And it's a moment of not vulnerability, but a moment of honesty from him, which she felt like she wasn't getting anywhere else. She saw that he really was in this dilemma of how much of my humanity do I sacrifice in order to play the role of the good prince or the good leader. But anyway, he's still not particularly likable because he's stomping all over Mal with glee and aggressively taking possession of Alina. And that's just not likable. And I totally get the aggressive, romantically aggressive male romance interest. I get that. I think that it's a confidence thing mainly. That can be very attractive. However, Alina is clearly not interested. She's interested in Mal. So from the POV of the protagonist, who we are, that's our POV, we are looking through her eyes, he's not attractive at all. This is very unwelcome pressure coming from him. Now let's move on to the show. In the show, but the show has done a very good job of making much more likable characters. And here's the interesting thing. They don't feel like a love triangle. So even though Nikolai and Mal are both far more attractive, you don't really, see the reason for a competition between the two of them because it's clearly Mal. And that's because they're not fighting with each other. So this is an interesting thing. Take note of this if you're a writer, that having characters who are both clearly likable but not in competition with each other may actually create a lack of that tension of who are they going to go with in the end. And I know that seems like it should be obvious, but for me, I saw the potential of this being a really good love triangle. I don't like love triangles, but the way that the show changed these characters, I'm going, this could be a good one because they are both such nice, likable characters. And I think the only way that you could make it into a successful love triangle is we have to tone down the awesomeness of Mal just a smidge. Maybe he's struggling with jealousy or with his being in a bad place a little bit more. Maybe he's not around as much because in the book he's not around as much. He's going off on hunting excursions and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Maybe have Mal be somebody who she needs more often, but he's not there, and Nikolai is. And this, okay, so yeah, you could do that without having to change too much of Mal, okay? When I say tone down the awesomeness, maybe what I should, forget that. Let's say, okay, he just has to be away more, and Nikolai is there, and she needs emotional support, she needs psychological support, and Nikolai's the one who's there to give it to her. Now that way, you have okay, again, this is not creating competition. I know I said that earlier. Jeez, just sometimes my head goes all over the place. Like I'm brainstorming right now as I'm doing this recording. But you get the idea. Okay, I think it's time to move on from the love triangle. Let's see what else we got. I guess I should mention actually one thing, another feature of the triangle, and that is Alina. Alina in the show, I am enjoying, it's hard for me to tell which one I like more, Alina in the book or the show, because there are things that are in the book that I find so obnoxious. For instance, her constantly, worrying about, I want, Mal to like me and all of this stuff, but I do see the conflict more in her head, her going like, but I also have to, save the country and I don't know what I'm going to do. It's coming through more powerfully in the book simply because we are in her head. I wish I saw in the show Alina being more of a military leader, or trying to be, which is what we saw in the book. So in the book, she's attending these war meetings, and even though it's not played out a lot, we see her at least going to them and talking about them and thinking about them and her being in this position of a leader of the Second Army, whereas we didn't really get that at all in the show. In the show, she says at the very beginning of the episode, like, I'll be the leader of the Second Army. Like, she's asserting herself as, I'll be the leader. But then we almost never see her actually being the leader of the Second Army. Okay, really quick, I am detecting solely from the show that there is something going on with these amplifiers, because I didn't really catch a whole lot of it from the book. And that is, you do get the same instances, but it seems like there's way more focus on it in the show than there is in the book. And that is the connection between Alina and Kerrigan through this residue that's left in his hand. I'm not sure what that is. And also the, I can't remember the name of the thing that's in her wrist, from the sea whip, the scales that are in her wrist. They have a name for it in the book, and I can't remember what the heck it is. Anyway, Alina describes it as feeling like, okay, when I got the antlers, that was like finally catching my breath, or you're being able to breathe. Like she felt like she really was amplified by that. But when she got the one for her wrist, yes, she felt like there was power, but it was chaos, and she's really struggling to control it. And then you see that, I think is it Nadia or is it Tamar who says like, oh, it's Tamar. Just focus on, somebody you really want to see smashed, imagine the face of the person you hate most, basically, and throw all your power at them. That seems to work. So pulling on a sort of a destructive hatred is going to be a way for her to focus her power, which clearly isn't a good thing, but okay, we'll see where they're going to go with this. Oh yeah, so in the last episode, I was saying, oh, wouldn't it be super cool if somehow Alina can control his power and Kerrigan controls her power, and in the book, that's sort of what happens, and I really like that a lot. But that's not what happened in the show. Okay, so this would clearly be a super awesome magical thing to have happen. Be like, okay, now that they've had this bridge created between Alina and Kerrigan, she has access to his power and he has access to hers. And I really thought that's what they were building up to in the show, but it didn't happen. So in the finale of the book, she basically creates more Nichevoya. That's what happens. She creates more of them. In the show, she was saying, maybe I can create an army of light creatures, basically Nichevoya, but instead of their shadow creatures, they are light creatures. And that ain't what happens. And I'm going, where's this part of the story? What is happening now? What? So someone please explain to me what's going on, because I thought this would be a major revelation in how the magic is going to work, and it just didn't happen. It happened in the book, so maybe they're going to move this moment to some later point in the story for the show. I don't know. It seems like it would be a really important thing to be like, oh, by the way, Alina can now, not only can now, but has now created more Nichevoya that are hers, fighting for her. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I keep doing this, but I have to come back to it. But the Nichevoya, again, I have a thing. I don't understand what Nadia's brother pointed out. He's like, look, they have to become solid in order to make contact with their prey, and that's when they're vulnerable. I have watched that scene maybe a dozen times now in slow motion, trying to see what he saw that made him think this. I didn't see it. Did anybody else see it? Like, okay, I saw that the king was being lifted up, right? Like the Nichevoya was going to kill the king. And I'm going, okay, at what point do we see that he can't make contact with it? The Nichevoya can't make contact with the king until it's solid. And that moment didn't happen. So someone tell me what's happening here. One comment about David. First of all, I'm enjoying the actor David having these interesting hand gestures. He does this sort of thing a lot, and I like it. I don't know if this is a quirk of the actor himself, or if this is a trait that he's decided the character has. If it's a trait that he's decided the character has, well done. It's interesting. It makes him a very animated character on screen, which we like to see. I mean, I am instantly, my eyes, his hands are like magnetic. Whenever he's talking, I'm like, look at his hands. So if you're an actor, consider this. Hand stuff is good. If it's not too much. And in this case, I don't feel like it's too much. He's doing a good job. He's kind of doing this sort of thing all the time. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, yeah, I enjoy it. Just that. But he is not a cute button because he left Genya to face the Darkling by herself. David, you are a disappointment to love interests everywhere. Don't do that. I don't know how I feel about the Firebird. I would love to see everybody go to Shuhan. You need to go to Shuhan, where we need to see some stuff about Alina being half Shuhan come into play. Otherwise, it was just a weird feature that she had in the show. I would like it to be something significant in more than we were able to be racist towards you for the first 2 episodes and then never bring it up again. So, the Firebird, and then we have this cool sword, which looked like it was made out of glass. I like that. That was maybe it was, I like the sword. That's all I'm going to say. I want her to have a sword. I like swords, if you don't know. I've got one there, and I use one all the time. But I would like to see her have this sword. I think it's really neat. I'd like that Mal is the one who goes out and finds the Firebird. I'd like him also to find the sword. I know that they're gonna hire the crows to go get the sword. I am so happy the crows are coming back in season 2, because I was honestly wondering if we were ever going to see them cross paths again, in which case you kind of go, why? Why have a show about the crows and Alina and all these guys if they never cross paths again? So this is a good way to do it. And I wonder if this was manufactured specifically for the show, because I know that they're not supposed to have crossed paths. Or isn't that how it goes? I don't know. Anyway. Oh yeah, here's another thing. Final note on Alina and all those guys. I didn't think it was a great idea for them to clear out when the Nichevoya attacked. I mean, they abandoned all those helpless people in the, thing. They just left them. Sorry, I know that I'm probably the only person in the whole world who can fight off these Nichevoya, but you're on your own. I gotta go save myself. And I get it. She's the one. She is the savior, so she has to be protected. I just wanted Alina to be the one to saying, no, I have to protect these people, and everybody else basically dragging her away and her realizing I have to go with them. That didn't happen, so I'm slightly disappointed in Alina there. And final thing about that fight is the Nichevoya seems to be stopped by the roof caving in on it. But I thought that they aren't supposed to really have solid form. But then again, the one kid said, oh, look, they have to be solid to, interact with their prey or make contact with their prey. And that's when they're vulnerable. I don't know. I'm confused because they're like, they have no heart, they have no blood, we can't do anything. They can shoot holes through them with their wind power, and it doesn't do nothing. She can throw light at it and it just, slices through and then they're fine again. But don't let the roof cave in on them. So I'm confused. Somebody explain this magic to me, please. Now we're on to stuff that wasn't in the book at all. So Kerrigan's perspective is completely out of the picture in the book. She says, anybody who calls her ruined, so it's the word for ruined, I think it is, a bunch of people are starting to talk about Genya calling her the ruined or something. I forget what the word that they used for it is. And she says, if you warn them once, and after that, if they do it again, cut out their tongues. And everybody's like, yes, ma'am, Alina. Like, that's pretty brutal, but okay. I get it. She's trying to stand up for Genya. And in the book, definitely much better relationship between Genya and Alina. They were much closer for a longer period of time. They had this intimacy, and that didn't happen so much in the show. So in the show, we haven't seen the two of them reunited yet, but I'm assuming it's going to happen immediately because Baghra and Genya have now escaped. I like how they escaped, by the way. I like that Baghra broke both of her hands and then immediately turned to Genya, like, fix them, and then they fixed them, and then she does the cut to get them out. Baghra, you're doing good. Baghra, I'm for you. I want you to keep being a badass old lady. I like this actress. So anyway, is it time for the crows yet?
No mourners.
No funerals.
I think it's time for the crows. Okay, so as weird as it is, I felt like there was less to talk about, or less happening with the crows. I mean, there was a lot happening with Alina and all those guys. Less happened with the crows in this episode, even though it felt like a mini climax. So we have gotten rid of Pekka, it seems. But at the same time, I don't know. I have mixed feelings. Mostly good because I like all of these characters and I like what they did with all of them, with the exception of Kaz. Kaz, you are disappointing me. But I do like these characters. So we start out with Kaz sort of stewing, and then he tells Inej, it would be a very big comfort to me if when the chips fall, I know that you are there in the shadows. And she's like, don't worry, I'll be there. This is a very big vulnerable moment for Kaz because he is saying, this is going to be hard for me to do, and I would like you to know that you're there supporting me. Which means later, when Inej is not there and he's angry at her, even though I did not like this reaction on his part at all, I think he was in the wrong because she clearly saw something very important. Like, he should be able to look on what she saw and think, okay, I understand why you did this. And the logical thing would be this. He's mad at her, he takes it out on her, and in the next episode, we should see him go, I was hurt and upset, but I understand why you did what you did. And for her to say, I'm so sorry that I wasn't there for you when I said I would be and when I know you needed me most because you never reveal your vulnerabilities to anybody. And you did to me, and I let you down. Inej, you've let me down a little bit. I like Inej. Inej is my girl. I want her to always be awesome. This was a little less awesome, but at the same time, you know what? This is good. This is a good thing. This is mature writing when you have characters doing good things and those good things don't always help each other. So anyway, we'll get more into that later, I think. Maybe we won't because sometimes I say I'll do that and then I never do. Let's go back. I enjoyed Jesper writing the terms of Kaz and him becoming friends again or moving past things. He tells him something along the lines of, you know what? I'm so sorry that things have been awkward and, difficult between us, but that sometimes happens between brothers. So you know what? I'm going to open up a tab for you at any pub that you want after this. And, everything will be good after that. I like that Jesper spells out, this is what it's going to take for us to just smooth over this and move on and be fine. And that Kaz is like, there is a cap on that tab, but yes, I like that. That to me was such a wonderful, clever moment of how to resolve this tension between these friends, because this is how it should happen. Obviously it never does in real life, because in real life people just don't get over things like this, which is stupid. They just don't talk. But this is a mature way to go about a situation like this. Yes, people who you love are going to disagree with you and do things that disappoint you, etc., etc. But just like with a family, you don't cut them out forever. You just kind of move past it and say, okay, look, let's do something to get over this and move on. And I like that. I like that Jesper especially just says, this is what you were going to do and things will be fine. And Kaz is like, all right, I'm coming along for the ride. Everything's good. I like Jesper. Jesper is winning. Okay, so this is what I mean by things with the crows, like not a whole lot happening, but seriously, like not a whole lot happens. The main thing is we see that they pass out the drug that they're going to, well, it's not a drug, it's a concoction that's going to give everybody the symptoms of firepox. And then they costume up, and then they all go their own separate ways to do their own separate things. With Inej, we see her going to the ship, which is the first place that she's going to go and spray this stuff everywhere. When she comes across the indentured people in the basement, or not in the basement, in the brig, it was like some women and kids, and she's like, don't worry, I'm going to free you. And then she kills a guy. She kills a guy once again, even though she's supposed to be against killing. I guess she just isn't anymore, so that happens. But I like her. She's once again being the hero that I want her to be. Very, very cool. And she's making tough decisions, but I think she did the right thing. So Inej is in the right here. She wasn't exactly in the wrong, but she should still apologize because she did let down somebody who she promised not to let down. But she did it for good reason, so... Then we have Wylan and Jesper. So they together costume up, pass out this stuff to the dregs, who you don't really see them. Now, I was expecting more from this need from Jesper to employ the dregs specifically, because he said, I want the killers, like me. And then all they did was take this little perfume bottle and everywhere. That's it? That's what you wanted them for? I'm a bit confused. Okay. Anyway, that was a small oversight, but it was an oversight. I don't see why he needed the killers for this, unless he thought that the killers knew that they were puffing a real virus, which they weren't. It was fake. It was a fake concoction that Wylan, who is a chemist in the area of explosives, somehow knew how to create. I don't know. Maybe he also has medical... apothecary type knowledge as well. We'll find out more later. I mean, it seems like these are two different fields of chemistry, so you can explain this to me. I mean, one is like, I shouldn't think too much about this. This is a fantasy, but I do. This is part of my job as an editor, is to look for the potential holes, point them out, and then the writer can either fix it or not fix it. And in this case, they decided not to fix it. That's okay. Most people will look past it if the characters are good enough, in which case they are here. Then we have I'm just going to go to the reveal, which is that Nina immediately came to Kaz after encountering Pekka at the Hell's Gate arena or whatever, where she saw Matthias fighting, and then Pekka was like, you're going to give me Kaz Brecker. So she goes immediately to Kaz and is like, I could tell he was lying when he said that he could get Matthias out of the prison. So what do I do? And Kaz comes up with a great solution for her, and it's a simple one. It's like, look, we're going to have to, figure out a way around, you making it look like you've handed me in and making it believable. But it's got to still help me to win against Pekka, because once I've wiped Pekka out and he's no longer in power, I'll just pay off the guards at the Hell's Gate to keep Matthias out of the ring. So, because nobody can get anybody out of Hell's Gate. But he could prevent Matthias from having to fight again, which would be good. So I thought that was good. I think it's nice to have a crew that is honest with each other and not sabotaging each other with dishonesty or leaving the truth out or, hiding things, because this leads to trouble. So the tighter your group is, the more honest they need to be with each other. And this just won Nina into the Crows. Like she wins. She's now part of the Crows. She is relying on them and trusting them and showing that she can be trustworthy as well. So for me, I was very surprised. I can't believe I'm saying this. Nina, you're in. You've done it. She's made it into the Crows. I am all for her being part of the Crows now. She has proven herself to be worthy of them, and I think that they're going to make a great team. I am so glad that Kaz came across as being this vicious, horrible person by taking the son and burying him alive, Pekka's kid. But then that's not what happened. He just was very convincing that this is what he did. So that was good, because if he had really done that, I would have been really cringing hard at Kaz from now on, going like, you kind of are a bad guy. Then we would have needed some sort of a redemption arc for him to go, you're right, I am starting to cross the line of being evil. So I'm glad he didn't. He has proven that he is still the good guy. He's just out to get the bad guys. So good there. And I know I heard in the comments that he's supposed to be willing to fight dirty and do those things. As long as he's only doing that to bad guys, or as long as he's not doing things that hurt the innocent, he will remain a likable character. You can torture the hell out of a bad guy, and we're going to root for you and say, you're a good guy. But the moment you're torturing somebody who's maybe not all that bad, you're kind of going, I don't know if he should be doing that because I like him and this isn't a very likable thing. He did it. He did not cross the line of evil, so good job there. I liked the plan too. I thought it was simple enough and believable enough, except that I'm not quite sure why Pekka didn't just kill Kaz after he found out that his kid was at the cemetery. I mean, what did he think? We'll just leave you here. I'm going to go off to the cemetery and we're going to find my kid and then I'm going to come back and kill you. Or was he keeping him alive? Like, okay, I'll keep you alive just in case my kid, I can't find him at the cemetery. So what? He's going to go to the cemetery, dig around and look for his kid and then not be able to find him and then come back and be like, yo, Kaz, tell me where my kid is because he wasn't where I looked. It didn't make sense that they just left Kaz there. I would have told this to the writer. You need to figure out some reason for Kaz to have to be let go at this point. Like Pekka must not stay or must not touch Kaz any further, must not, whatever. He has to go and leave Kaz alone. There must be a reason because I didn't buy this. This wasn't working for me. And I know you're like, oh, everybody can say like, wait, but he told him, you're going to need all your guys to dig around and find him. That's not good enough. Why didn't they just grab Kaz and take him to the cemetery with them? Yeah, so that's the end of that discussion. I did not think that I was going to enjoy Pekka and Kaz's interactions as much as I did. It was a very nice, slow, but continuously building up pressure to, you can't even remember my brother's name. Like you are such a scumbag. You have done this to so many people. We were so unimportant to you that you can't even remember his name. And I love that thing that Kaz said, or it was Pekka and Kaz, Pekka going like, look, you were just two random pigeons that I plucked off the street. And if it wasn't me who did it, it would have been somebody else. And Kaz goes, well, that's unlucky for your son, Albie, then, that it was you who picked us up. Look, so good. That's beautiful, beautiful dialogue right there. It's sharp like a razor blade and it just cuts in so deep and yeah, you just love to see the bad guy really lose and that was it. I felt Pekka's pain. As weird as it is, I was like, oh man, didn't that hurt a lot? So I liked that it built up to that line. I felt like all the dialogue was slowly leading up to that moment and it was so effective. And I like that I thought Kaz was smart in saying, I want your confession for the murder of Helene and the constable. And I also want Inez's, her quitclaim deed or whatever the heck. Basically she's free. That's what I want. Now he's got it in writing. So like, there's no way to take it back. He's got it, moving on. Kaz was smart. I like it a lot. And Pekka was pretty smart too. This time he got outwitted. And this is a good thing to do in writing, is to have your bad guy winning up until the end. But now I'm going, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is not the end. This is episode 4. So what's next for our crows? Are they going after the sword? Is that what we're supposed to be looking forward to for them? It's interesting because I was so invested in this Pekka thing. I kind of expected it to take longer. I keep saying this too. I expect things to take longer to happen than they do. And like for instance, I'm done with the book, but we're only on episode 4. So the show seems to be rushing a few things, but it doesn't feel terribly rushed. And this might be because I have read now what's behind the scenes, at least for the Alina stuff. I mean, I felt like there was a chunk, like a good third of the book was just skipped right over to get to this ending. So I'm a bit lost there. Okay, then we have the romance with Jesper and Wylan. They finally actually talk about what happened to them before. So Wylan says, I left you first because I thought that's what you were going to do. And so I figured I just better cut my losses and just go first. Like which is a very emotional, self-protective sort of a thing to do. And Jesper is kind of getting called out on his lifestyle, going like, okay, you're right. And he even admits it. Like, this is the sort of thing that I usually do. Like, there's definitely justification for why you did that, because that's the way that I was. I probably would have just upped and left. But now I actually know you. It's not just a fling, and I'm interested in seeing where this relationship will go. This is a far more mature way to go about a relationship, is to not be so protective of yourself and say, I'm willing to be vulnerable if you're willing to be vulnerable. So I'm liking where this is going. I am very curious, though, about Wylan. Both of these characters we don't know a whole lot about, but Wylan in particular is interesting to me because we know so little about him. We've seen so little from him. So there's a point when they're putting on costumes and Wylan says, I like this because it covers my whole face. He's hiding from somebody. So that's interesting to me. And then we have Jesper, who doesn't want anyone knowing that he's a Durast. Why is he hiding that he's a Durast? These are all very, they still aren't completely open with each other. So here is what I'm wondering. Are these secrets that they have going to, when they be revealed to each other, affect their relationship in some way? I'm kind of wondering this because this would be a very effective thing to do, to say, okay, they both have secrets, but let's put them emotionally, let's attach them emotionally. Like, okay, you guys are now locked in psychologically and emotionally. You're in a relationship. You want to be together. You're happy together. How do we throw a wrench into this? The one secret that you've been keeping from each other. So Jesper, that he's a Durast, and Wylan, that he somehow doesn't want to be recognized. Whoever he is a somebody. Have that information be something that offends the other in a way. This is what I would do. So I'm curious to see where that goes. I can't wait to start Six of Crows. I am now done. I'm done with Siege and Storm, thinking if I want to know anything about what's going on with Alina, I better read Rise and Ruin. But I want to get to the Six of Crows. So I think that's what I'm going to do. You know, I'm just moving on to the Crows. I'm moving on to the Crows because I want to see what everybody's telling me about. Stuff that doesn't make sense in the show makes perfect sense in the book, and it will all be good. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to the Six of Crows. We're reading Six of Crows next, starting today. But anyway, I totally enjoyed this episode. I had more mixed feelings about it than others, but it was action-packed. Lots of stuff was going on. I need to just shut up now and tell you to please subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. It really does help the algorithm. And if you are feeling really generous, check out my Patreon or Ko-fi. Ko-fi is better because they don't take a percentage of anything that you give to creators, whereas Patreon does. They take at least 10%. And until next time, episode 5 and the start of Six of Crows, be good to yourself.